There they had been, hung over and strung out, the three of them, on a Sunday afternoon in San Francisco, lolling around the manicured lawn of some tech startup genius Duval used to do some coding for, when Davenport had dug the dusty set from underneath the pressure-treated deck. They started with the normal, casual sort of play, tossing the little white ball from end to end of the closely mowed grass, keeping half-assed score, whining a little now and then about how they had drunk too much the night before. But the whole yard had come, after a bit, to feel too cramped a space for their game, too cramped not only by the precisely trimmed box hedge around it, but also, and more fundamentally, by the chorus of whining that surrounded them, because everyone at this Sunday afternoon gathering had drunk way too much the night before. And so when Duval accidentally on purpose threw the little white ball a little too high and a little too hard, and it floated over the hedge with the edge you could slice bread on, and they had gone out with their red balls and yellow balls to see if they could play it where it lay, and when, once they had figured who was closest to the mark and tallied up the score, instead of throwing the ball back into the yard of the tech millionaire, Davenport threw it further down the street, they had followed it to freedom and the frisson of rebellion. Since then, from heading east on Bougainvillea Avenue to heading east across the inland suburbs of San Francisco to heading east into the hinterlands of Northern California to heading east across the border, they had devoted themselves to the game, tossing the white ball in the general direction of the Atlantic and rolling their heavy, brightly colored balls after it, aiming to land one closest and win the round, but dedicated, regardless of the score, simply to continuing their play. It would be wrong to say that bocce consumed them during the days it took to cross western mountain ranges. Intent as they were on the little white ball, focused as they were on each toss and roll, forcefully as they argued the merits of an overhand backspun throw as opposed to an underhand roll, they nevertheless spent long moments standing and staring at the vistas randomly opened before them by the spinning and bouncing of the white ball that they followed as if it were a prophet and they its ragged band of acolytes. I know how that sounds, Brian said now to his sister, or to the heavy silence at the other end of the call, a silence in which his sister might still be sitting, listening, or that might fill the office she had left after setting her phone down on a desk, or that might be the sonic surface of the closed door, a featureless signal of an ended call. It didn't matter. Brian had to tell. It sounds crazy, but maybe I don't mean that as a figure of speech, sis. Maybe we really have become a dedicated group of followers pursuing the game where it leads, no matter where it leads. By a week in, we all understood this. We were seeing the world in ways that we never would have seen it if we had traveled in any other way. Sometimes we were near roads and towns, but sometimes we were all alone in places I'm not sure anyone has seen since Mountain Man times or the extermination of the Indians, and it was beautiful. Whether we were rolling our bocce balls in the cinders alongside a disused railway spur or through a forest of lodgepole pines, the scenery, sis, was something fucking else. Even when they had come through the mountains and were playing their way across the plains faster than any of them remembered from youthful experience of cross-continental travel, the beauty of each moment, of each stretch of wheat field or country road, of cornfield or once busy highway whose traffic now blazed blindly down the interstate a few miles north or south. Each broken parking lot outside a diner or motel or gas station barely hanging on. Each apron of pavement outside a window crowded with neon signs, hosting its conclave of pickup trucks whose drivers drank inside and never knew of the game, always the game, that passed just yards from where they sat. The beauty shimmered like heat over asphalt, and they would stop before throwing the white ball again and look around and shake their heads and grin and agree that, God damn, it was almost more than you could bear. Didn't they ever stop to sleep or eat or take care of the inescapable human needs? Well, of course they did. Neither magical nor mystical, this tour was all about the body in space, the body in all its fleshly need and rich sensation. They stopped, shared pancakes and sausages, Beans poured from cans and heated over flames, stopped and slept, sometimes in a cheap room, 3 to a bed, sometimes in the lee of a shop or factory, waking to hunt coffee, letting the call of the little white ball build to an ache as they sat and warmed their hands around mugs, or stood out of the rain and sipped from styrofoam, letting it build to an itch or burn so that the first eastward toss of the day felt satisfying in a deep and ineffable way. We lost the first white ball before we even got out of California, Brian said, more and more certain that Rebecca was no longer listening. We had to suspend play long enough to hike to a Walmart. You have no idea how hard it is to get a replacement for the little white ball. We were going to have to write to the manufacturer and wait 2 to 4 weeks for them to send one to us. We bought a whole set instead, a whole bunch of heavy bocce balls we didn't need and couldn't carry, and left it all there, all but the 2 white balls, 2 because the set comes with an extra. And those 2 lasted us a long time, longer than you'd have thought, because after losing the first one, we knew now that we had to take care, that we had to let the ball go where it would, but we also had to exercise a tiny bit of discretion and direction when we let it fly. We thought we'd lost one to an 18-wheeler on a highway just a day or 2 later, but that thing bobbed and weaved across 4 lanes and came to rest in the shoulders, weeds, and broken glass. That round took us a while because each of us had to wait and time his throws around the traffic. Duval won with a pretty little roll that almost kissed the target. We tried to keep away from highways after that. Bodies of water were the worst. We lost both of those balls in streams on throws we thought would clear the obstacles. Another suspension of play, another middle-of-nowhere Walmart. Here, we bought 10 bocce sets, their whole stock, just loaded them up on a credit card. We stripped them of their little white balls and left the rest, donated the lot to the people of some tiny Nebraska town. In 100 years, you heard it here first, that place is going to be famous for its passionate devotion to a strange brand of bocce that goes without the white ball. School kids will grow up playing it instead of football. They'll be on TV sometime, a backwater full of folks with wicked sidearm throws and the ability to drop a colored ball on a dime 15 feet away. Brian saw the bushes shake up ahead, and Davenport stepped out onto the road. His bald scalp had burned and peeled and burned again before they got him a decent hat to wear. Under the brim of the straw pork pie, his road-blackened face grinned. He held up the little white ball, almost as grimed by travel as the 3 of them. "We're close now, sis," Brian said. "We have swum rivers and spate and suck-stepped through swamps. We have been nibbled by insects in their millions and pecked at and shat on by the birds. One round was interrupted by a bull whose eye we caught with the tossing of the red balls, and we came up with an elegant rule for exceptions when play could not continue. Duval was felled for days in Pennsylvania by a case of dysentery. We have been stared at and threatened, laughed with, entertained, and asked to move along, and once we were called goofy bastards with such force that the name has stuck, and it is in these terms we think of ourselves now. We have endured and been transformed, sis, following the white ball where it leads, taking a chance on chance in the will of the wind, and we are nearly there. When that white ball flies off our fingertips into the Atlantic, I'm not entirely sure that we won't follow it. I half suspect that if we keep on tossing the colored balls after it, we will grow the capacity to breathe underwater. We will learn the languages of whatever shore we step out onto." Thank you. Thank you.